How's it? I'm Honan,
I'm Oliver.
and this is episode 11 of the K-pop podcast. Lucky number 11. And
Yeah.
then I was losing my brain there for a second because we had a topic that was going to be the first topic, but we switched the order around. So it's actually going to be end of year review that we're going to start in with today.
Yeah. So I mean, we already talked about who are like artists of the year and stuff. So it's not going to be about that, but I guess it's just going to be like, how do you feel about 2021 as a year in K-pop? I guess it's what your your third full year, I suppose. If you count 2019 would be your first full year.
Yeah.
How does it how did it compare, do you think? Both like generally and in terms of like particular songs.
I think just like the amount of knowledge I have and then also the amount of groups that I actually dive into are a lot different than from like originally, where like the end of 2019 was probably me just like Blackpink's the best thing that ever, like, like fully immersed into like Blackpink. And then although Dreamcatcher was a big part of that early on experience too, but yeah, the now it's like there's so many groups that aren't like super popular in K-pop that I like and check out, which I think is very different from before. Like, when I'm listening to things like Dream Note and they had one of my favorite releases of the whole year and stuff, like I feel like that's something that's very different from the years past.
Yeah. I think for me it was definitely the first year that I fully like hard committed to like a couple of groups in particular. Like I wasn't the diehard nature stan that I am now in 2020. It kind of started towards the end of 2020, which was a very fruitful and rewarding thing to be for this whole year without a comeback. But but it's been a different environment for me in general because I've been more involved in like the communities around that particular group for me. So I've had a kind of different experience of it. I think overall, I think it was a solid year. I think it did the best that it could with the pandemic and everything. Because 2020, you could really kind of tell that it was struggling, right? There was some issues, and there was a lot that couldn't. It felt very repressed, stunted in 2020, and maybe in 2021 there was a bit more signs of life again, and some really strong releases as well. Obviously, you can check our songs of the year episode to see what we in particular were referring to there.
I was surprised people actually liked the picks.
Yeah,
I was thinking we were gonna get like some flack or something, but I remember like one of the first things someone said was like, "Oh, really love the picks." I was like, "Oh, okay, we're not as terrible of taste as we."
I mean, we know we objectively have great music taste.
Yeah.
But now it's also there's like the positive signs of some concerts and stuff happening, some tours that are happening, a bit more in the way of live audience interaction. Because I think that's probably been one of the weirdest things, is having all the music shows and stuff without audiences. But K-pop's certainly been a pioneer in that regard of having like the Beyond Live concerts and stuff, having these like AR concerts and things and ways to interact with fans that can't be there in person. And I think that's going to be a legacy that they will feel for a long time, because we're going to have, I don't feel like groups are going to stop doing these online type things, even though they can do in-person things. It's going to become an as well, not an instead of.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And I think we're going to see more and more Western artists start to do that kind of thing as well. The kinds of stages where you have everyone's faces on computer screens in the back kind of thing, which is just, it's been, at first it was difficult to get accustomed to, but I think as they got better and better at doing it, it got more enjoyable. And then of course we had the end of year festival and award show run, which is still going. We still have a few left to come.
I said before we started, they need an award for having the most award shows. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Um,
With particularly with those award shows, um, does it ever trip you out that you can listen to the same song so many times just because there's going to be like the tiniest bit of variation in the
a slightly different
performance?
arrangement. Yeah, I mean, I've loved how many different ways that Brave Girls are trying to do roll in.
Yeah.
Different, they're doing like ballad versions, Christmas versions, like
Dude,
just trying to
I
think of
want the
ways
acoustic
to
is it Bachi Ram?
Chimat Baram.
Chima Baram. Well, what did I even say? Like how did I completely flipped like
Some of the syllables were there. They were just in the wrong order. Yeah,
I want the acoustic version of that, like as because it's so sick as their
yeah, it's a
live
good version.
performance.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always been that way, so I guess I'm used to it, and it is sometimes cool to see how is this group going to do this thing, but in general, the way I kind of felt about the award shows this year was it was getting a little bit tiresome to see so much of just the same kind of thing, and I don't mean the same groups doing the same songs, but it's just like even the other stages tended to be a bit kind of one note. It was like, all right, here's all the hot dances again, and they just do a 1 minute kind of dance break by themselves, and then that's it. Like, so thinking about Mama in particular, there was all that hype over all the dancers doing their big stage together, and it just kind of was like one by one by one by one. They didn't do anything as a group,
Yeah.
and it was a bit underwhelming.
Is that the thing where like Yeji also had a thing, and I think it was Karina also, where they're dancing with like the powder thing and throwing it up in the air and stuff?
Yeah, something
And
like that.
it's like a transition between scenes kind of thing. I was confused about why that was happening and what if it was gonna like connect, but it happened and then it just like didn't connect to anything afterwards, and I was like, oh okay, that's just like a transition screen basically of an award show.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, well, how did you feel about Mama this year?
So I'm a bit of an ITZY fanboy. So I really liked ITZY's Mama performance. And for anyone who wants to understand why I am also Cherry Young is my favorite ITZY member, so that performance was like great. I thought that was a great Mafia in the Morning and Loco performance, you know, kind of mashed together. I thought they had my favorite performance out of the Mama performances. Espa, the thing that disappoints me with Espa is like I love the concept, and then when they have the platform like Mama to have like a giant award show performance like that, and then it's not like a seamless fusion of the concept, you know, like this they don't have like it doesn't feel grandiose, you know what I mean, like all the AI being thrown in and everything. It was kind of like there was just the four of them dancing, singing, and there was a little bit of like CG going on like behind them. Is what that felt like to me. Like when
Yeah, I would definitely agree that ITZY had. I think ITZY and Enhypen had the highlight performances for me. And I know that there was some criticism about the way that, especially TXT, were handled. I think Mama they would rush the artists off stage pretty quick, and I think some stuff was getting cut short because of it. But yeah, I mean, I thought 2020 Mama was underwhelming, and I could barely even remember 2019 Mama. And this one was again not great for all the hype that there is around it. But yeah, it's for something that goes on that long and has that much fuss about it, because Mama likes to present itself as like the king of all the award shows and everything, and they had that little documentary about the history of it and stuff beforehand, and then it was just kind of meh. I did think ITZY's stage was the highlight. I thought having the actor who played Doksu from Squid Game in there was a fun twist, and Ryujin having a fight choreo and stuff, which is always cool.
Yeah, there was really memorable moments from ITZY's performance, like especially the way it starts too, like Ryujin and like kind of the detective like mafia outfit thing going on, and then she's like got the whole opening sequence, and then the fight scene was super memorable, and then all the way that they did the stage too. Chaeyoung had, what was going on. Leah and Yuna, right? They all had like very interesting, memorable parts to their stage, to those
Yeah.
songs, whereas not the other groups kind of got lost for me in that whole thing. I do remember hot sauce from NCT because they walked out of like a giant hot sauce bottle.
Yeah, I think it was constantly around that like kind of awkward CG in the back where it was like they'd clearly put some money into it, but it was like it just felt kind of half-assed, the whole thing. And in general, that's kind of how I felt about most of the shows. Like there were some very cool performances, some cool moments. There was that cool like Girls' Generation cover stage that a bunch of idols from different groups did, which was neat. But at the same time, it wasn't like wow, And I'm always reminded of 2018 as kind of like the pinnacle of what those end of year shows have been like. Where we had like the KBS Song Festival there, and we had like the SM through the years stage, the JYP through the years stage, but
I
all the
remember
artists were coming in and out and doing different parts of those songs and stuff. And then we had like the Hush stage, and we had the Twice Red Velvet Dreams Come True stage.
You're talking about the Hush
like,
with Joy and
yes,
right? Yes,
yes,
that was
that Hush stage.
That's like that. I remember that still.
Well, that's the thing, right? I don't feel like any of these things really are going to have that that longevity, that like lasting impact of this was a legendary stage, I thought Brave Girls stage at Bama was pretty good. It was nice just seeing how much of a good time they were having, given that the only time they have ever been at Mama was basically as dancers for another artist, and back in 2016. So like, yeah, there were some nice moments, but it does just, for something that's meant to be such a big deal and has had such hype performances in the past, it does just feel a little bit lackluster. And I don't feel like many of the other shows were really there picking up the slack from that.
Well, I remember leading into Mama happening that there was like the legendary thing, right, where they're given like 2NE1 and Psy and Twice and
it's like that documentary,
yeah. So I was like, when the award show was coming up, I was thinking like all these artists then are gonna have like some type of like 2NE1's gonna have a reunion performance or something at Mama, and then like maybe like Psy will show up and do something, and like Twice, because they got that thing as well, will do like some type of iconic performance thing, but then none of them were there.
Yeah, and CL was there, and that was it. Yeah,
so
yeah. It feels like artists themselves don't take it very seriously, which is fair because it doesn't have to be taken that seriously. But so many of them don't go anymore.
Yeah, IU didn't even go to get her award.
Yeah, I mean, IU's done that a lot. But
she
like,
did the video. She's like, "Oh, I'll put it next to my other."
She literally, she was sat on a sofa and she was like holding the award. She was like, "I have these at home." Just like,
just flexing on everyone over
but
the screen.
But we did see it was the MMAs, right, where IU had that really neat stage. She did 3 songs. She had that really cool celebrity performance when she was like standing in the little room with all the screens with like all of her friends and stuff coming on it. Like that was really cute and like wholesome. And then she wore a ridiculous outfit for another song, which we won't have to talk about. And like, there were, I think across all of the shows, we've had some good performances from most of the artists. Yeah. And we had, so one thing that got me, there was like a first gen K-pop stage from boy groups at one of the song festivals, and it's like it was like TXT and Enhypen, and was it someone else? I can't remember. And it's like it was cool, and then I was like, why is it just boy groups doing just the boy groups first gen thing? Where's the rest of it? I get like you did something. Yeah. Where's the rest of it?
The only really collaborative thing I saw was like the Christmas song thing with Wendy and like everyone from every group together. Like That was like the
Yeah.
only super collaborative performance I remember seeing from all the award shows, and I think that was the SBS one or something, right?
Mm, yeah.
Wendy just like slaying vocals in the beginning, and then everyone kind of singing after that.
Yeah. It just feels a little bit unfulfilling. And even with there was the cool stages with like Wendy and Hyojung and Solar and stuff, and it just all feels a little bit lacking.
There are some things I haven't seen yet that I've seen like thumbnails for. There's like a thing with Yuna from Girls' Generation.
Yeah, so that was the other day with Yuna and what's his face from 2 p.m. doing a Senorita performance, which is that's cool. They were the host, right? And it's like, was it Taeseon? Might be Taeseon. Like and that's cool to see that kind of thing, right? But it's it's a diamond in the rough type thing, right? I mean, I haven't seen the stage.
The one thing I actually thought was cool because I like when they do the collaborative performance thing because it's like the opportunity to do it is these award shows and stuff.
Yeah.
The Beast song that Ryujin and I think it was Minnie from Idol and stuff they performed it together. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
It was actually cool. So like Ryujin and Minnie, and then I'm trying to remember who else was in the unit. They made like a unit out of different girl groups, and then they did a Beast song, and it was interesting because Ryujin was doing like old school like rap like like and the dance. It was interesting to see the different like side.
Yeah, and that's what it should. That's what it should be, right?
Yeah.
It should be that. It shouldn't. It rather than just like some dubstep dance break in the middle of the same song again, right? Like that's. But I get it because it's meant to be the celebration of the songs that did well that year, so I do understand it. But it does feel a bit underwhelming at times.
The thing was the Mama Mafia in the Morning performance was so like cool, and then they had to perform it at every other award show after that. But it was like you did the dopest performance first or whatever. So now, but I watched every single one when it happened on like all the different award shows. But it was like there's not too much variation they can do to make it more interesting. You know what I mean? Like from award show to award show.
Yeah, and I mean this happens most of the time, but there definitely were some. You did feel the absences of some of the really big acts, right? Like it was very apparent not having like Twice and BTS and Blackpink. I mean, Blackpink haven't been at those shows for years, right? But BTS and Twice usually are there every time. So them, because BTS are on their break, and I mean some of the members have had COVID, so there's that. And Twice have been preparing for doing their concert. So they haven't been there, and same with like 17 as well. We didn't see them really. It's starting to feel like it's more of a, and here's the next boy group. There's such a disparity of Mama, there's so many more male acts than female acts as well, and it just
well, like I like NCT, obviously I enjoy a lot of their between the three units, right? But they had, because there is like three NCT units, they had so many performances and Mark is like he's working harder than anyone I've ever seen in the industry. Like I don't know how many different times that guy had to change outfits and perform for the different NCTs at Mama, but it was crazy because I think he went from like doing the hot sauce song to doing the because it was a different unit that did what's the other one, Sticker, right?
Yeah, so that's from NCT Dream to NCT 127.
Yeah, it's funny because he's like there, and it's like, oh hey, I'm here again.
So it's H-chan.
Oh hi Mark, like every time.
H-chan is in both of those as well. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that segues us nicely into what I think probably was the highlight of the end of year, which was the SM Town concert. Or though technically it's not the end of year because it was on the 1st on Saturday, but that is how you do an end of year show, I think, and that was with no crowd and stuff and pre-recorded performances and whatnot. but that was like that felt like a real event, and it didn't just feel like the groups were there going through the motions. It really felt like everyone was there giving it their all, and it was really cool to see how they were blending in like the performances from like Boa and TVXQ and stuff like that, and how they were connecting all of that in with aespa and NCT and the newer side of things. And there were some things that I wish we had seen. I like there was no full shiny performance, for example. Obviously, there are only 3 of them there, so it would have been tougher. But I feel like they probably could have done a song and just covered Taemin's parts. And there was no Irene and Sulgi like Monster or Nordi performance, which also would have been cool to see.
Monster
and there was no
from Irene and Sulgi,
OGG
like
performance.
is such an amazing song. Like I am upset that they didn't do that.
Yeah,
There was no OGG Girls' Generation thing in that.
No, we knew that. So when they announced the album, right, and there's the OGG song on it, which is great. Finally, we have another song by them. And then when they announced the set list for this concert, it was only Hyoyeon and Taeyeon that were going to be there. So they both performed their own songs, like solo songs, as well as in Girls on Top, which was definitely promoted as the highlight, like the climax of the whole show, right? It had its own little introductory segment with Ituk and Shintong is like emceeing it. And then they had like a performance from each of the like representative groups that make up the whole, and then the actual performance itself, which was really cool, I thought. And like I wasn't a huge fan of the song, but they absolutely slayed it. And it was what you want to see, right? It's, oh my god, I'm finally watching Hyoyeon, Boa, and Sulgi dancing
like a super group
in a song together.
It's
Super M, but the female version, right? And
yeah,
arguably even better than that in terms of the status of each of the members. And it was like you had these like power vocal moments from multiple different people. It's like you had like Wendy hitting a high note and then Taeyeon hitting a high note, and you're like,
Taeyeon had one
dream
really
am I living in?
Did like the real wind up towards the end of the song where I was like, there we go. I was like, that's why you have Taeyeon in a song.
Yeah, and that's obviously you can't expect every award show ever to form a super group and have a performance and a stage like that, but that's what it's all about. That's what an end of year show should be about, right?
Yeah.
And overall, I thought that concert, I mean, it was a 41 song set list. Like we got to watch like Catch Me by TVXQ, which is an all-timer in terms of choreo and of the song. Like they have those like light bracelet things, and they do like this really cool like movement. It's so dope.
I didn't catch much of that, but I did. Yeah, I tuned in to House Party, and it was New Year's night, and let's just say I was drinking. And like that came on, and it was a house party. It just instantly like grew into that when it came on, because that song is like the perfect end of the year song to turn on to, like right when I clicked in, because I just searched like SM Entertainment, and it was the first thing was the live of that happening. But I didn't see many besides that in Queendom and something else.
We'll have to catch you up. It's become the most streamed online concert of all time in terms of viewership and stuff, which is funny as well, because the day before there was the High B in-house concert as well, which I think was done through Universe. I don't think it was free, because SM's one was just on YouTube.
They charged.
Well, I don't know. I think it's just if you have Universe. I don't. I could be
see. Like if you have like a specific app or something.
If you have the app, yeah. But BTS again weren't performing at it, so it's kind of funny that you have the High B one without the flagship.
Yeah.
But obviously that's still TXT and Hypen 17 from S9 now, which is weird. It would have been G Friend, all those groups. So it was still a strong lineup. But yeah, I don't think New East perform? I don't know. Anyway, I didn't watch it, so I don't know.
Yeah, you have to wonder if it would have been the highest streamed if it had BTS on it.
Yeah, you have to imagine.
I mean,
so.
It would have to be. Yeah,
you have to imagine so. It was. I think it. Yeah.
SM just has so many really iconic artists though that they can throw into one
Yeah,
live
the
show.
fact that we had that concert, as good as it was, without EXO, we had just Kai, poor Kai, by himself. And obviously, Kai's had his solo stuff to perform, so it's not like he was there not
Oh,
doing
did he do
anything.
the?
He did that. He did that, and his new song Peaches as well. Yeah. Um,
I don't think I've actually seen. Wait, have I seen Peaches yet? I'm trying to
I don't
remember.
know,
I think I would
but
remember. That's for sure.
it was kind of funny. Like they have the whole thick concept was like them all on this train, right? And there's like each of them in a carriage, a different carriage, and it was just kind of sad. Kai being by himself in a carriage. And it's like, oh, can't he at least go and hang out with Boa? Like they keep each other company.
Well, that's the thing about like Taeyeon is technically like there as a solo artist because, like you said, they didn't do like OGG performance thing, but she still finds a way into so many other like things happening too. Like she's in Girls on Top, and then it seems like they always find a way, even though Taeyeon is a solo artist technically at the moment. They always find a way to like incorporate her into everything going on with SM Entertainment, because there was like the videos, the Kwangya station or something it's called or whatever, and then they still are like there's all the groups, you know, like aespa, NCT Super Junior, and then it's like, and then here's Taeyeon. It's like she's so iconic that they're like, we have to find a way to include her into every possible moment that we can. Which I'm not complaining. I agree, absolutely.
I kind of echo your sentiments about aespa when they performed at Mama, because it's the same kind of thing where I don't feel like they quite have the same stage presence that some of their seniors do yet. I feel like they definitely will grow into it. I feel like as well the nature of the songs doesn't necessarily lend themselves to do so much with it, you know, but at least unless they change the arrangement, which they haven't yet. And when aespa perform, it does always feel a little bit underwhelming, and they also don't seem to sing live very much, which is also kind of disappointing because they sound great in the recording, right? And it would be cool to have them properly giving us some live vocals.
I don't know that I've ever actually seen them sing live in any of the things I've watched.
So obviously I get that why aespa are being pushed, and I think they are just going to continue to get better and bigger, but there's something a little lacking when it comes to their performances, but that's a small criticism. I think one particular highlight to balance that, Boa's Only One stage. So Boa, Only One is one of her classic songs, right? You're the only one. She's done that with like so many different iconic SM dancers over the last long amount of time. She did it with Taemin, with Eunhyuk, with someone else, Sehun from EXO, like all kinds of like. She's
had to have collabed by now, right? With like just like way too many people to name.
And the person who did it with her for this stage was Shotaro, one of the newest NCT members, Shotaro, who was the Japanese dude who was TikTok dancing in October of 2020, and then by December of 2020 was performing in NCT 2020 on stage, right? And that was really cool to see him be given that amount of trust, you know, to be, because she could have done it with Kai, she could have done it with Taeyong or like another more established dancer in the out there, but she went for one of the new guys, and I think, and she herself said that there's she considers it like a rite of passage to becoming an elite dancer is being able to do that with her. Especially there's like a one leg kick up, like they have to be on the ground and they like kick themselves up on one leg or something. She says, if you can do that,
I break my hip doing.
Yeah, she said, if you can do that, then you're in the elite club. And if Boa lets you in the elite club, you better you better appreciate it, you know. So that was a really cool moment for sure. I think the Suju had like a whole medley of songs before, but it was missing Heechul, sadly. He wasn't there. Because I think you remember that when they did like that medley for a festival earlier in December, where they had like Heechul with the drum solo and stuff.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to have that.
He usually always has a really cool cameo where it's just like, hey,
Yeah,
and then he just like disappears after that. But
yeah. So we didn't have that this time,
I
sadly.
was that was the disappointing thing with like House Party, when I was like looking forward to like the, Heechul coming in doing the like little
Yeah,
rap part he has in the middle, like little
not
rap.
that Unhook doesn't do that part justice, but it isn't quite the same having him just appear out of nowhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, that so yeah, no EXO, no Full Shiny performance, no Irene Sulgi performance, no Heechul, probably no OGG. They're probably the biggest downsides, but all in all, are really really good.
If EXO could have been there doing Monster as at least like the full group, that would have been like my highlight of the end of the year.
But so I mean that exemplifies why that 2018 one was so good, when we had the SM one, we had like the NCT units and everything. I mean, it started off with Hyoyeon and Red Velvet, and then it was like, yeah, and then EXO come out and the first thing they do is Monster, and it was like 2 years afterwards, and it's like, yeah, guys, you don't have to just perform the song from this year. Like you can do whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I feel like people miss out on. And I think Twice did that last year. They performed older songs as well as the ones that they had from that year.
Well, Twice has such
cool
a massive catalog of like iconic songs they can pull from.
Yeah, and the only other artist I really saw doing that was BTS, and that's just because BTS had half an hour at the end of each show, so they could do whatever.
It was like, yeah, so like BTS wasn't at Mama, so it felt like they were like, NCT, you get the BTS time slot of just like 35 minutes of this award show.
No one had that really long time. NCT as overall, if you add all of the stages together, they did, yeah, but not like sequentially.
No, I get it. Yeah, because they have the different units.
Yeah.
To kind of conclude that topic though, I want to know why Red Velvet wasn't at Mama. Like they were at the other award show. So when they weren't at Mama, I was thinking, oh man, Red Velvet's not going to be at the award shows or whatever. And then it was like SBS, I think was the next one or something. It was like, there they are doing Psycho, doing Queendom. I was like, why was Psycho not a part of Mama? With like,
maybe just like, because they weren't they weren't nominated for many awards or something.
It's Red Velvet.
I know.
Red Velvet should just.
It's the same with Oh My God. They weren't at Mama either.
Which is ridiculous because Dun Dun Dance definitely deserved a Mama performance. And if I don't know what the outfits were in the one Dun Dun Dance performance, because it did not fit the theme of the song. That's for sure. It was just them trying to like murder me through the screen, like especially Arin, whatever you call that outfit that they had going on. But
yeah,
like, Dun Dun Dance, such a happy song, and then they're like in full leather. Like I didn't know what was going on there. Was that was the SBS Oh My Girl performance, right? One of the many award shows that.
Yeah.
Where I've watched the same song performed again.
Well, certainly having particularly eye-catching stage outfits is a one way to get you back in.
Sorry Not Sorry at one of the award shows. That was a nice surprise where I was like, a different song. Like I was like, nice.
That's good. Yeah, and that's how it should be, right? Like at the SM one, it was cool. Red Velvet did Pose, for example, and that was cool just to have another song. Do
you just think like when I hear that song, I just think of like Irene doing like the Vogue like pose thing from like the choreography. She like perfectly fits the theme of that song.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did our like 35 minute spiel on the end of the year. Well, I thought I was gonna spend a bunch of time talking about Chaeryeong's little side performance that happened in Mama. I'm sure anyone who's seen that performance knows what I'm talking about, but I controlled myself. I didn't let my inner fanboy take over the moment there. They did for sure to conclude all that. I would have to say ITZY was hands down the best at Mama. I know that not everyone will agree with that. I'm sure some people. Well, Stray Kids had a cool performance. The Tank came out and stuff, but ITZY to me had the most memorable moment in the Mama performances.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Nice. We agree, but someone down there's going to be very angry at me. All right, well, that was it for topic. Well, actually, we were also going to talk about the 100 Faces.
Oh, yes.
Right? The most beautiful...
TC Candler's 100 most beautiful and most handsome faces of the year. Yeah, so for those who don't know, I feel like this has become such a part of K-pop mythos that like everyone seems to know about it whenever it happens.
Yeah.
I think that's probably because there's a lot of K-pop idols that end up in these lists. It's basically some dude who like runs a team of dudes, or perhaps it's just him. It's unclear. Who every year, and he's been doing the girls list for like almost 20 years, and the boys list for about 5 or 6 or 7 years. Just puts 100 faces together in a list and ranks them and gives someone the most beautiful face of the year award, most handsome face of the year award. So this year, the most handsome face went to a Burmese model whose name I now forget, who apparently is in prison because of the military coup in Burma, and he was a bit outspoken about it. So fair play, free that guy. I'm not gonna.
That was a wild story just within like 5 seconds.
Ping Takon is his name. I'll make sure he gets his actual name. So yeah, free Ping Takon. If I'm saying that wrong, I apologize.
Everyone just hashtag spam that everywhere.
Yeah, but but this is a list that I think last year Jungkook was number 1, and the year before that it was V. It's
fair enough to Jungkook from BTS, right? That dude is like,
they're very good looking people. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like I would fully stop in the street and just be like, "Is that a human being that just walked past me?"
I think Jason Momoa was in there as well. Jason Momoa isn't someone I would describe necessarily as having a handsome face. He's just kind of like a hot guy.
Yeah, he's kind of like kind of like those Marvel superhero dudes all are. I kind of mash them all into one like category together.
Well, he is Aquaman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's DC. That's right. He's
yeah. They're gonna.
I did like him in Dune. I liked him as.
I haven't seen it.
I forget which. He's Duncan Idaho in Dune. He was really good at that.
Okay. Yeah. Then the beautiful faces. So it'd been a thing so Nana from After School / Orange Caramel had won that like multiple times. So she won it like 5 times, which is fair because she's a beautiful lady.
Yeah.
And then we had Chewie win it last year. And this year we had Lisa win it, which is interesting. And we've had quite a few people in there that I thought were surprising, and quite a few people that I thought were omitted surprisingly, shall we say.
Yeah, well, so I have no problem with anyone who's on the list. It's all objective too, like who you find beautiful or it's just like I have a problem with the people who aren't on the list. You know what I mean? Like, like IU isn't one of the most beautiful faces of 2021.
Yeah. So it's all subjective. You mean? So
yeah, subjective. Yeah.
Yeah. So IU. So the big omissions for me would in terms of the Korean sphere were IU, Aaron, because Yua was like 20th. Aaron. Who else? Oh, Doyeon from Weki Meki, because I think she's just absurdly good looking. And the one I think I was most surprised to not see was Jung Hoyeon, everyone's favorite Squid Game actress, because I think everyone around the world when Squid Game was in its hype, everyone was going, "God damn, that girl is pretty."
Her Instagram just went like boop, skyrocketed
like 30 million
Squid
followers
Games
or something.
like instantaneously. Yeah.
So I was kind of surprised not to see her on it. But it's whatever. But I think the thing that strikes me always is a bit odd is like, and I want to say it in ways to not like come off as disrespectful to anyone, obviously. But so, for example, I think Unsa from WJSN was 80th, and she was the only WJSN member on the list. And While Enso is undoubtedly a very good-looking woman, because there's not a single K-pop idol who is not, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say that she is the prettiest in her group, you know. So it's like, how did this happen that she is the one who ended up there and not any of the others, you know?
I have like obviously my favorites in K-pop.
Yeah.
Like Sunmi is my favorite idol. But like I was about to say it again.
No, but this is where it becomes objectively, right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
but objectively
is who you prefer.
Yeah,
objectively
yeah, yeah.
is like
Objectively,
yeah.
Like there's people like Taeyeon and IU and Irene from like Red Velvet where it's like okay, that is just like an insanely beautiful person or whatever, you know, who is like god tier like looks like if you're creating a character and you creating their stats, their looks stats just like went to 100, you know. Like it was like it's just like so even though Sunmi's my favorite, I would admit that like IU, Taeyeon, and like Irene, these are like some of the just most drop dead like beautiful people on the planet, you know what I mean? Like where there are people where it's just like okay, yeah, even if they're not like your favorite or you don't, you know what I mean? Like you just can admit that they are ridiculously good looking.
Like Zoolander.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean
Hansel's so hot.
So hot right now. There's not that much really to say about it. At the end of the day, I think people shouldn't take it too seriously. It should just be considered a bit of fun.
No, yeah, of course.
And don't use it to put other people or fandoms down about it. But I think it does kind of show just how silly it is that, like, especially in an industry where there's so many good-looking people, that you just can somehow pick and choose and say, oh, that Yua is number 20 in the whole world, but no other member of Oh My Girl is in the top 100 or whatever. You know, it just.
I mean, whoever made the list,
strange.
that's just who they, I guess.
I think there is a voting thing involved as well.
Oh,
but
okay.
There's some kind of fan nominations, and I'm not quite.
I was really excited that Chaeryeong was in the list. Not gonna lie.
Well, and Chaeryeong was the only member of ITZY in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
No. The other members of ITZY were in there, and I wouldn't say that Chaeryeong is the prettiest member of ITZY.
Excuse me?
You might say that, but I guess that
Best
in itself shows
girl.
That shows why it's such a strange thing, right?
My only problem was that Chaeryeong was too low on the list. I thought she was hands down, like she should have been like the highest on that list of all the K-pop idols.
She should have been first.
She should have been first. Yes.
I mean,
I have a soft spot in my heart for Lisa, so like I wasn't upset or anything that Lisa was number one.
Nah.
She was my first, like I guess technically my first K-pop bias.
No, I wasn't upset by it either. But I don't think Rose was on the list at all, right? Like Jisoo and Jennie both were.
Yeah, Rosé's really, really beautiful too. Like striking.
Right?
Yeah, it's like there's 100 people they have. So. I get why it's difficult. There's 100 people, and you just have to be like. At some point, you have to cement your picks.
Yeah,
when
it's a similar kind of thing to like whatever nebulous criteria it is that decides what the Korean beauty standard is, and that then decides who the visual of a group is, right? It's like, how does this get decided? Because like for Oh My God, obviously this dude thinks that Yua is the prettiest, which is, again, Yua's gorgeous. We probably both think that Aaron is the prettiest, and she is gorgeous, and then Jiho is the visual, and she's gorgeous. So it's like, you know.
Yeah, the thing is, I want people listening to understand that me and Oliver aren't actually upset or salty or whatever about this list. It's like if you are actually upset about it, you might want to see a psychiatrist. But there's people that should, like, I think Natalie Portman, they said, has been on it the most or something. It's like 24 times or whatever. It's just crazy.
Been on it, like, since the list's inception or something.
They threw her at like 100 on there just to throw her on there or something. I was like, oh, she literally made it at the last possible spot just to be included again or something. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
I think the best way they could do that list is, like you're saying with the actress from Squid Games, it should be like people not only who you think like are if they're gonna be the most beautiful of that year, it should be like they had like an amazing year or something in their respective field or something too, rather than to me just some random person pulled from
Because I think the other thing with that is it's like otherwise because the 100 faces from a year ago, surely they're going to be pretty more or less the same.
Yeah, it's
right?
not like their face drastically changed.
It's not like they just so suddenly got really ugly over a year, and it's not like 100 other people suddenly got really pretty. You know, it
No.
does kind of feel a bit
Yeah,
odd.
I mean, in my opinion, because Taeyeon and Sunmi and Joy were not like in that top three, I just it's just not a good list. It's when I looked and I didn't see Taeyeon and I didn't see Sunmi and I didn't see like IU anywhere on the list, I was like, yeah, that's kind of shit, isn't it? And just kind of like,
yeah, I do still like watching
personal.
the videos. I will say not because I'm that invested in who's where. I do like seeing some like lesser known idols or whatever get some recognition in
sure.
it, which I think is always neat. And I like that they have like the little flags that show each of the like nationalities that make up some of the people. Yeah. So I think that's kind of cool, and the quotes can be funny. But yeah, it's a bit weird and it's not all that deep. So
no, it's not. Like, I mean, I hope there's not too much thought put into the 100 beautiful faces list. It kind of is just one of those things like they were really beautiful this year again, weren't they?
Like, yeah, shocker.
I mean, I do hope that Chaeryeong flexes her most beautiful in ITZY status on the ITZY members when she gets a chance.
I think that one is especially nice because she's someone who has like she's had insecurities about her appearance before, right? And she's had people have criticized her and stuff, or saying that she's ugly or not pretty enough to be an idol and stuff like that. So it must have been a nice boost for her.
Who's criticized her? Give me names. I need to find these people.
So yeah, so it's certainly that can be a nice thing. And I hope that the other four don't feel bad about not being on the list.
Like I said, Chaeryeong, well deserved. I definitely should have been like in the top three, but I can forgive the mistakes made on the list. I feel like we even did longer conversation on the list than we thought we would, but there's somehow a lot more to cover on it than we thought. That is it for kind of the large wrap up of 2021 topic in general. All right, topic 2 is our 2022 predictions. Like, who do we believe by the end of this year is going to be the biggest 4th gen girl group and boy group? And then we're not just talking, so we'll talk domestically and internationally, because I feel they'll be different, you know. Yeah, whoever's biggest domestically is, I don't think, going to be the biggest group internationally.
Yeah, so yeah, well, I mean, that's obviously a very important distinction to make, right? Because there's groups that have had really big years that still don't have much weight in Korea, and vice versa. So I'll preface this by saying that one of the people I'm going to talk about, the Korean media has started using the 5th gen phrase around and saying that this debut was so significant that it could mark the start of a new generation. I, for one, completely reject that idea, because I feel like a generation has to be generational. you know, we have to have a gap of like
2 years, and here's a new gen.
Yeah, it doesn't sit with me, but I get why they're saying it, because it did feel like such a big event, and that was IVE. So IVE's debut was really, really big. I know you haven't heard the song yet.
No, I haven't, but I know who you're talking about because of the IZ*ONE members that are in it and stuff.
Yeah, Yujin and Wonyoung. And Wonyoung and well, both of them really, but Wonyoung especially carried a lot of weight in Korea. And when we were talking about the post-survival show groups and stuff, and I mentioned their upcoming group and thinking, how's that going to do? And the answer is really, really, really well.
Yeah.
like really well. I think they sold 200,000 plus. Um,
It's crazy.
it's yeah, really good. And they took their first win. They were the fastest to get their win after debut for a girl group or something. Then they won like 5 more shows. They just won a Rookie of the Year award. They debuted 2 months ago. It's funny as well that this is episode 11 because the debut song is called 11.
I planned it. No,
Yeah.
I just
The catchy line is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You make me feel like 11.
yeah. So
um,
obviously after this episode, I'll have to for our channel see Ive and also Kepler debuting
Yeah.
and everything. But I suppose we should first do like domestic, and so it's Ive and like Stacy have like
Yeah,
insane domestic popularity that we've seen.
Yeah.
Like,
So really the groups that I was considering to be the sort of 4th gen leaders before I've debuted, at least for 2021, in terms of how much I had seen them since coming here and how much charting and stuff they were doing. How much charting is a really weird way of phrasing it, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
It was Stacy and Esper. And then Weekly were kind of tagging along. And ITZY, of course, are definitely the most popular internationally and had the most success internationally. But they didn't seem to have the same catching in Korea. Like I've only heard an ITZY song being played once since I've been here. Whereas I was hearing Stacy and Weekly and Esper everywhere, all the time.
I think the style of the releases could have a lot to do with that as well, because
Yeah,
Stacy
definitely.
had something if you're in public that you can a lot more casually hear in the background, like A7 stuff, versus like I'm the mafia while you're walking around.
Same with Weekly.
Yeah.
They definitely appeal more to the traditional Korean sense of what a girl group song should be like, because Koreans tend to have more aversion to the noisier, more aggressive sound.
Yeah.
But they do also like the experimentation, which is why I think partly why Esper has done so well recently. But having said that, obviously Esper are an SM girl group, and that will always count for a lot. I think obviously if it hadn't been for the Sujin thing, Idol would have had a much bigger year than they did, because Hwa was a really, really big song for them. Like Koreans loved that because of the traditional elements and stuff to it. They thought that was really cool. And yeah, I feel like if it hadn't been for that, then they certainly would have had a big year. And I do feel like Idol will come back strongly, but I think their popularity will be more international than domestic, unfortunately.
I think because of things like KDA that they've been a part of with Soyeon and Mion, right?
Yeah,
they've been a part of like the Riot Games, like KDA group. I think that has made them already like a lot more internationally.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless, because
a lot of people, I mean, I've known people now who've come in and said that KDA was their introduction to K-pop. They didn't know it before, and that they thought it was all kind of lame or cutesy or whatever, and then they hear Soyeon rapping on that song, and they're like, "Hold on!"
Well, those songs are so good.
They're good.
Like
really
especially
good, yeah.
Mo. Like the beginning, the Soyeon's part in the beginning of More is like probably my favorite thing I've ever heard her do. Like Calico style. Yeah. Like the way that flows is like one of the coolest rap openings to a pop song that I've heard.
Yeah, and I mean the Idol members, including Soyeon, have been doing fine in their own stuff, right? Like Yuki was back in China doing everything. Minnie was back in Thailand doing stuff. Minnie also had that web drama here. Was it a web drama or a full drama? I can't remember. Netflix show. So Not Worth It. It was cool. Mion was in a drama as well, which had Nature on the OST. And like, you know, Mion has popped up in all kinds of things, and Soyeon has been a judge on My Teenage Girl, that survival show, which has been really popular in Korea, actually, has like triple, quadruple the ratings.
From being a contestant in like 4 survival shows to being the judge of
a good one of the most apt judges for it, right?
Yeah,
Certainly knows that field. so yeah, I mean, and she actually just won an award. Like her and the judges from that show like won a special award at the NBC Entertainment Awards recently. So I mean, I'm sure Idol will definitely bounce back, but it might be in a different focus. I think, yeah, in Korea, it's going to be Stacey, it's going to be Weekly, it's going to be Esper, it's going to be Ive, but there's going to be more more than that because we have JYP's new girl group set to debut in February,
And
I
that's another
believe.
label like SM when they drop something, it's massive because
Yep.
it's one of the big like three. You know, it's one of the ones that have the influence.
Yeah, and I wonder what style we're gonna get because I feel like we're not. I feel like it wouldn't make sense for them to debut a group that sounds similar to ITZY, right?
It's going to be a lot more members than ITZY, right? Isn't it like
I
a
think seven. I think.
seven? Okay,
I think
so
so.
not crazy like amount,
A
but
standard amount.
yeah,
And part of me, and I feel like this is not an uncommon opinion, feels like this is the setting up for whatever circumstances might come about from Twice's contract renewal, if that happens or doesn't, and if everyone renews or doesn't, and whatever that situation is. Obviously, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not Twice will still be a group by the end of 2022.
I
I don't know.
twice is like a void that I don't think can be filled.
Mm,
Like, so I'll explain why because I feel like Girls' Generation is also a void that isn't filled even by Twice. So I feel like
mm.
there's certain groups that did so good and they left like kind of a big enough mark in the whole genre that regardless if you did something in the same style and you even had let's see if great songs, there's just a uniqueness to the way Twice is with all the members lined up and everything that I don't think they can just like replicate.
Yeah, and yeah. I mean, like I said, we can only really wait and see exactly how it's going to be marketed and what the style is going to be. But I feel like people thought that before when Twice were debuting, right? That well, before that, it was like no one thought people didn't think that Miss A would be able to cover for Wonder Girls, and in a way, they didn't. Miss A didn't really reach the same heights that Wonder Girls did. But Twice, I would say, surpassed it, right? I would say that Twice, and I think, I mean, while Girls' Generation's legacy and impact is insurmountable, I think in terms of the sheer reach that they had across Asia, Twice is, if anything, has surpassed that as well. I mean, it's hard to judge because obviously the way that sales and everything has just kind of grown exponentially with the growth of the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
You know, you can't necessarily match them up like weight for weight, but yeah, it's hard to judge. And but I do feel like, especially the way that the industry is at the moment, the way that it's set up, that anticipation builds so quickly that they will debut to instant success, and it's just a question of where that ceiling is going to be. But it's not just going to be JYP, especially for girl groups. I think 2022 will be a big year for girl groups. I'm sure there will be some boy groups that debut and do their thing, but we should also have the High B girl group debuting, which, as far as I'm aware, it will have Sakura from IZ*ONE, and it will probably also have Chaewon
Already a
from
fan.
IZ*ONE. Well, yeah, and what I'm thinking is if I've debuted the way they did with two known members, and debuted to such success. I mean, the song is good. That obviously helped, but it's a Starship group. They're not a big three company. They're big. Starship is Monster X, WJSN. It's not a small company by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not. It doesn't have anything compared to the resources that Hybe has.
If even a small percentage of the like BTS fan base supports the girl group debuting on it, it'll be a massive hit. Just
Yeah,
even a small percentage of BTS's
and
fan base
and even if it's appealing to different fans or new fans, you can see what the influence of having that Hybe resources has had on Promise Nine, for example. It's yeah, it can't be understated the soft power that being under that umbrella is going to have.
yeah.
And as far as I'm aware, there might even be two groups that debut this year under from Hype, because I think so. Island, the show which formed Enhypen, I think is going to have a second season, a girl group one. So there'll be an Island girl group
And then
debuting,
isn't
and
Kepler
the
having a
Hybe
boy group
group.
version of that or whatever?
Boys Planet 909 will happen too. Yeah. So, well, I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I think that might not happen, and that they might not debut until next year. But
Okay.
I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be later this year. I don't know. We'll have to find out. But yeah. So we also should have the new YG girl group as well, but that one is the one with the most question marks around it, as YG girl groups have always had. So,
the
but in
thing
theory,
about
we're
a
going to have
label like
new groups from
YG
each big
is
label.
that could, like, when we're talking about who could be like the biggest group out of like the fourth gen, a YG girl group could just shoot right to the top.
Right.
Like,
right, because that's kind of how it happened, right? Like if you
Yeah.
looked at 2015, for example, and you looked at the groups that I would say became the sort of the mainstays of the third gen in 2015, we had Twice, we had G Friend, we had Mamamoo, we had Red Velvet, we had Lovelies, we had Oh My Girl. Obviously, Lovelies and Oh My Girl hadn't blown up at that point, but they were there. And then Blackpink debuted in 2016, and
yeah.
you know, it changed the landscape a lot, and definitely YG has the power
Teddy
to do that.
Club anthem later, and that group could be sitting at the top of the rankings, because it's just like I think that's much more of an international fame we're talking there when it's like a YG girl group than we are talking like domestically versus like the worldwide kind of like, this is girl groups huge instantly, you know, because Blackpink to me always felt like a very international famous, like,
I think certainly by the time you got into it, I think the first couple of years they were certainly really big in Korea, but there's just so little effort or so little real promotion in Korea for them, because the YG is very much of the opinion clearly that they don't need to market their girl groups. They market themselves.
Yeah.
But you used to see Blackpink appearing on shows. You used to see them you saw them on Idol Room and Weekly Idol and stuff like that, and Knowing Bros. I mean, they put on Knowing Bros last year, but it's not common. Yeah. You know, they don't pop up that often. Whereas for those other groups I mentioned, you would see them all over the place, right? It's more of a concerted effort to promote them domestically. So yeah, I do feel like, I do have to wonder what will the response be from Blinks when that group does debut, because remembering what it was like when Blackpink debuted, a lot of Blackjacks to anyone fans were not happy about it because it felt like a replacement. And
yeah,
if it doesn't feel like a replacement, then maybe it will be more welcoming. But I know what Blinks are like.
Well, so the reason I don't know how well it will go over is because like Blackpink, you wait so long for them to release stuff, it feels like, versus a lot of, well, especially versus like Twice. I feel like Twice sometimes releases like 3 albums in the amount of time that Blackpink releases a song or something, you know? So I think a lot of Blackpink fans could be upset, like, why there hasn't been a release in a really long time, and then there's a new girl group or whatever. You know what I mean? They're like, what's happening with Blackpink?
Yeah, and it's like, why the classic line is, why are they debuting a new group when they're not paying attention to this group, you know? Because as if the idea is that companies can't do both, when obviously they can. But yeah, so it should, if especially if the YG group does debut, and I mean they were supposed to debut last year and didn't, so who knows? But in theory, we could have each one of the big four with a freshly debuted or close to freshly debuted group. With aespa, I think will only continue to rise unless they. The thing with aespa, I feel like each one of their songs could be such a risk, you know.
Yeah, if they get too experimental, it's kind of like, it's going to be interesting how much growth they have.
It's. I feel like they're in that spot almost now where it's like, if they're too experimental, they might alienate some of the fans, and if they're not experimental enough, they might alienate some of their fans. So I don't know where they're going to sit, but I'm very interested to see nonetheless.
The big outliers obviously are those big labels, YG and then JYP and Hive, having groups debut that could just be instantly bigger than every fourth gen group from the get
Yeah.
go, you know? Whereas like we're kind of thinking about like Stacy and Ive and these groups that you're already seeing success.
Yeah.
But like we're saying, those big labels, if they can just drop something that's like boom,
Yeah,
skyrockets
it's like
instantaneously.
the ceiling is higher for
Yeah.
big four labels groups for sure. Like what like Stacey's success has been incredible,
Yeah.
um, but it's always like has that caveat. It's like it's incredible for what they are, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like they sold 250,000 albums in total now, which is amazing for a group from a smaller company, even though it's from a reputable producer and everything. But it's like, wow, they're doing so well. And then Esper will calmly sell 600,000. You know, it's like the difference in numbers is
Yeah.
it's incomparable. But it's yeah.
Well, I suppose if you looked at like early BTS being on a small label, no
Mm.
one could predict that growth. You know, it's like
So
there
I
could
guess
be.
that's the other thing. Yeah, it's who is coming up from those kinds of labels that could be having that kind of story. Or who would you like to see? Who do you think right now doesn't have much in the way of success, and you
Dream
could
no,
see
no.
a dream note? I mean, you could see a positive trajectory at least.
I could see if I don't with the type of music that Stacy does, I can't see the BTS kind of growth.
Mm.
I feel like BTS had the type of style in that they fit in genre wise that where they could have that amazing growth like that and that amazing ceiling that they hit. Like, well, I don't think they've even hit the ceiling of where they are going, but you know what I mean? Because BTS could have songs like "Fake Love" and stuff like that, where I don't know that Stacy or I haven't seen, you know, if they're gonna have something that's like that style where it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of way different, you know,
Mm.
versus like whereas Stacy and I think they're obvious. I haven't heard Ive song, but I imagine it's more in the cute direction, or is it not?
I mean,
I mean, I don't want to actually don't tell me because I haven't
I,
heard it, but
yeah, I don't know how to say that without spoiling it. It's not cutesy, but it's not girl crush. It kind of
gotcha.
exists somewhere in between.
I think it takes a group. It would take a group that has a bit of Blackpink style to their music, kind of, to hit an amazing height like BTS. If you know
Yeah,
what I
certainly
mean.
internationally.
I think it
Yeah,
takes for the international fame. I think it takes someone who can have a bit of that in their music, versus
yeah,
like if it's really something that works really great domestically in Korea, I don't know that they're going to have the BTS type of growth
yeah.
internationally.
So I think one group I think is definitely gonna, providing that they have because I know that they have a comeback now announced. One group I think is gonna really soar this year will be Treasure. Um, I mean, again, there's this a YG group, so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a given, but the amount of anticipation that's been built, and I feel like this is part of what YG does really well in having such long breaks between comebacks for their artists, is that it makes that anticipation build so much
Yeah.
that and they know how to time it so that the fandom doesn't lose interest. You
There's
know,
like a
they
fervor to
it
it when
keeps
people
them,
finally get it, you know, like
and
the
you just see the orders and stuff go up and up and up. You know, so I think Treasure will have a very big year. I think this comeback for them will be huge. Maybe what will it sell? I don't know. 750,000 at least. I will say. I won't go far as to say it'll be a million seller yet,
I
but
guess we
they
did
could be.
talk about the girl groups a lot, didn't we? Because there is like in the fourth gen, there's ATs, there's Stray Kids, there's a lot
Yeah.
of there's big boy groups, and
So
go ahead.
yeah. Well, those two you mentioned, I think, are two examples of groups that have nothing in Korea really. Despite getting the slots on big shows, in terms of like Mama and stuff, when like being on Kingdom, you see them release a song and it charts at like 500 or something. um, it's they don't have, it just doesn't land. It's the Koreans view it as this fourth gen boy group noise that they're
Falls
not
more under
interested in.
like the international
Yeah.
fame that we were talking about
Um,
category.
but Stray Kids, I mean, Stray Kids are just so ludicrously prolific that they just churn out so much content, and it's not just that they make so much music and release so many albums and stuff. It's also that they do so much other stuff too, right? Like Bang Chan goes live every week to do this like Chan's Room V Live and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
I feel like it's appealing to a lot of people, and that's absolutely as it should be, right? It's great that you can have that regular content from your idols. I think Stray Kids announced that this year they're releasing 2 full albums and going on tour. And knowing them, that will probably also be they'll also throw in a mixtape and some other stuff, and then maybe a mini album and a special single hit. You know, like they're just what they're like. So
Yeah, well,
it'll be a really
JYP
big
as a
year for them.
label just seems to like, because you've seen it with Twice and everything. The content amount of content's always crazy. It's the amount of stuff that is like
Yeah,
pumped out is like holy crap. Like, how do you
they're
have
very prolific.
free? Do you have free time? Like,
No,
do you-
of course they don't. Absolutely not. Yeah, so I think this will be a big year for Stray Kids, but again, I don't see them hitting anything in notable in Korea.
I could see them growing
But they don't
internationally
need it.
more. I
Yeah.
can see them getting bigger internationally. Would you say TXT is like someone who's grown a lot domestically as a boy group in Korea? Or is that more of an international fame also?
I think all of the Hybe boy groups really are, except 17, but 17 are old school. Really don't quite have that same domestic pull. There certainly it's growing in hype and certainly growing in popularity. But I think the concepts that they do, even though they don't make the same kind of like loud music in the same way, TXT have become a fucking indie rock band out of nowhere. Their music has been all these like rock focused instrumental sort of stuff, which is really cool. But I haven't seen it grab anyone massively over here. I don't think I've heard a TXT song being played here. And in Hyphen again, they're growing in popularity, so I think they're actually having a repackage comeback imminently in a few days. So we'll have to see how that does. I think the song is called like they always have their songs are like 2 words hyphenated because they're in hyphen, get it. So it's like drunk, dazed, and tamed
The
dash.
name that took me a long time to pronounce properly every time I said
this
it
one is
was
like
live.
something to do with bleeding. It's like bleeding something. I can't remember. So I think they're sticking with their darker concepts and stuff, which is cool. But I'm not sure how big it'll be.
So I'm
One
gonna
group. Okay.
No. Go ahead. Actually, finish what you guys.
I was gonna say one group I would love to see, and who had really considerable growth in their own context in terms of like selling better than what they had done previously, and I'd love to see that trend continue. Is Elast? I would love to see Elast do like to rise up more because they have a really unique sound to them.
Well, I feel like there's the groups we want to have
Yes.
the great year and the groups that are going to have like the great year, like I was gonna say like
Yeah.
if I'm gonna cement like my predictions for domestic and like international, I would say that I have to take IVE into consideration now from what I've heard about them, but domestically I would still lock in Stacy. I think is gonna be massive domestically by the end of 2022 from what I've seen. And then internationally, this is like girl groups that I'm talking about here. I love ITZY. I love what they did so much this like in 2021. I became a big fan, but I'm gonna have to say aespa girl group wise is gonna be like the international like that. I feel like they're just gonna go bigger and bigger, and the only thing that could change that pick for me really over the year will be what happens with the JYP YG Hybe, like what those debuts are like. Unless if those debuts are just like massive instantaneously, then I would probably change my pick on that. But aespa is also still an SM girl group, which I think carries a lot of weight. But yeah, if I was to lock in girl group 2022 predictions right now, I would say Stacy domestically, aespa internationally, I think are going to have massive 2022s like as a year. But I want it to be ITZY, but I'm being realistic here.
So as ever, as I want to do, I go and check the top 10 on Melon just to see what the situation is there, see what Korea is mostly listening to. Obviously, it's just one the most popular streaming service in Korea, but it's one of many. Um, Number one, no surprise, is Im Young Woong, everyone's favorite short singer. I guess released an OST. We have IU with one of her songs for her new album in second. We have Bo, who's the winner of Show Me the Money in third, Sokodomo from Show Me the Money in fourth, Bo again in fifth, and Ive at sixth. We do not, as I rapidly scroll through, aespa don't appear until 17th with Dreams Come True. Savage is at 24th. Got the Beat, the SM supergroup, is at 27th. We don't have a boy group song until 38th, which is what else? Butter. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes. Boy group songs don't carry the same longevity most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess we also have to talk about we have to talk about it's hard to talk about Got the Beat because we don't really know what their status is going to be, because so far it hasn't seemed like it's going to be quite the same as Super M in terms of like releasing videos and full physical albums and doing promotion cycles and stuff like that. People thought that there was going to be a music video for their song, and so far there hasn't been. So
it's such an amazing lineup. I mean, they have so much potential there.
Yeah, they really do.
Like, that lineup is crazy. They could.
That's the
I really hope they drop an absolute banger of a song. Like,
that does appeal to so many different, to domestic and international fans, right? Because like you know that domestic fans are like, oh shit, Boa and Taeyeon and Seulgi and all these, and Karina and Winter, and then international fans are like, oh, also Seulgi, and you know, there's so much of an appeal for a lot of people. So I have to see what happens with that, and then we have to talk about Kepler as well. And it's always kind of hard to talk about the produce groups because they're so short-lived, right? But they released they had their debut today, or technically yesterday now, but it became the best-selling first day girl group of all time. So they sold 90,000 on the first day.
I'm a little salty about Kepler, if I'm being honest. I want to be excited.
Wait till you hear the song.
I just, you know how I feel, because like some of my favorite picks didn't make it, so I'm always gonna have a little bit of like when I check Kepler. But I will try to be very unbiased with the song when I check it out and everything. But yeah, it's you didn't make it feel like a glowing review that I'm gonna have.
I was just scrolling through to see if it's on Melon yet. Roland is at 75th and Dun Dun Dance is at 80th. Incidentally, watching All I Want for Christmas Is You plummet out of the chart. It's quite funny. Okay, it's not on there. It's not on there yet. I imagine it'll be on Bugs, but yeah.
No, I know there's so many groups that can make my picks. I just had of like Stacey and aespa, like just like dashed by like potential of releases. Kepler being one that could just. Kepler could be more massive than IZ*ONE was as a produce group. Like,
it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Because it was hard to see how much success IZ*ONE were going to have until after their first comeback. Their debut was good, but it wasn't massive. It was after the first comeback that you really started to see it. I think it's going to depend on the nature of the song, because I don't feel like there is any one member in Kepler who necessarily carries that same charm to the Korean public that Wonyoung did for IZ*ONE. And it's now carried through to IVE as well, and Sakura too. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe there will be some emergence from the members there, but I'm looking at it and I'm like, who? I mean, we know that Chaehyun was the most popular for Korean people, but what is she going to do to build on that? But they're doing very well, and I imagine they will only do better. For me, I thought the song, the title song was well, that's all I'm going to say. But there's two other. So the album contains like Kepler. This is traditional for produce groups, right? They have like the final group does their own re-recordings of some of the songs from the show, right? So they have like the over and over and over version with just them, and they have like Shine with just them, and so songs that you all have heard before, but it's just their voices, right? And then they had the title, which is new. They have like an intro song, which is like, it's kind of like an addict almost, because it's like a minute 50. So it's not just an intro, it is a song, but it's too short to be like a whole song, right? Which was really good, like really good. And then they have a B-side, well, I guess an album song, which is also really good. And I'm loath that people thought that I'm loath that they thought that the title is the title track material, and I loathe that people are eating it up. But I'll let you
this
form your own
happens with us a
judgment on
lot in general, where we're like, why is this B-side a B-side? Like, what?
It sounds those ones are like they remind me of like the really good B-sides that WJSN have. It's that kind of style, and it's really cool. And I'm like, okay, if this is what we're in store for in the future from them, then I'm gonna let my reservations about the lineup subside more for that. But I think
mean, over the next
general,
episodes,
they're gonna
I'll
do
have
very well.
heard Ive and Kepler, and I could very well change my decision I have today. But yeah, it's as of now, from knowledge I have right now, I see a lot of potential with Stacy domestically. And I see if Espa has to release something that I feel is more accessible to everyone versus where I feel some of the releases they have now are very niche kind of group feeling to them, you know, like not everyone can. There's a lot of people, if you show them like Savage or something, they're probably not gonna be too accepting of how like much shift there is and stuff, you know what I mean? It's not as easy to digest as like a, whereas like Blackpink, you know, sometimes when you show that to someone, that's just like easily accessible to everybody. It's like, oh, okay, like sick, you know, like, but with Espa, it's kind of like I enjoy it, but I can understand why some people wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, whichever way we look at it, I think we're definitely in store for a very interesting 2022.
Yeah.
And I do wonder, because I think the other thing we didn't really touch on is that like this will probably be the last year that we have for I'm not sure how they're going to do it yet, but this will be the last year we have of BTS as we know them. Because they are going to have, because Jin is going to have to enlist. I don't think they're going to get more deference or an exemption or anything like that, hopefully. And that will change if they all choose to enlist together, like On and Off just did, or if they go in one by one, whatever they do, it's going to massively impact how the industry looks because you can't, we can't separate how much of a weight their BTS will have on it, right? And how much that will leave a gap that others can fill, but like equally how there are other groups that are going to be struggling too. 18 months. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a long time of not having like the biggest group in your genre.
Yeah. And maybe they will go in one by one and they will continue to release stuff as units or
as
whatever.
Solo artists and stuff too.
Whatever it might be.
They all have their kind of their solo things going on. There might be some members that don't enlist because they feel like, okay, now I can explore a lot more in my solo music.
Yeah, but it's going to be the same for a lot of the mainstays. Obviously, this is the thing that affects boys more than, well, it affects boys. It doesn't affect us. We're going to have 17 members are going to be enlisting. More of Monster X are going to be enlisting. I'm not sure about another group that's actually really popular internationally is The Boys. I feel like they must. I don't know how old their oldest members are though, so they might have a bit more time. But yeah, it's going to be. It's going to change the soundscape. Sure.
It could be the year of NCT with all that taken into account.
We haven't even mentioned NCT yet.
I think when you take all that into account, and when I consider who has like the most potential kind of through the year, NCT could just You know, if there's that
Well, yeah.
gap like that, if there's that gap of all these really iconic groups just like not releasing, and then NCT's out there just pumping content out, you know, that
Well,
would be
we're going to
huge.
have the new NCT show, I think. We're going to have the NCT Hollywood. I know.
I don't know how I feel about that, but it's
I hope you know that, like, if there's a live audience thing for that, you're obligated to go.
oh yeah, at least one showing. Yeah,
At least
it's like
one. I think it was meant to happen last year,
I
but
didn't tell
COVID
you I'm
obviously.
auditioning.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Just smash it. So I think it was meant to be NCT Japan
Hmm.
last year, but I think they had to get pushed back. So there should be an NCT Japan unit. And I know that JYP is doing the second season of the Nizzy project for boys as well. So we're going to have a boy group Nizzy project, whatever they're going to be called. So there'll be big groups focused on Japan specifically, with primarily Japanese members as well. So that'll be a whole other thing.
That's the
Um,
JYP business model is it's insane. Like,
There's just growth. All I
yeah,
can
that's
see in for any of these companies really is just growth,
he's like it
right?
just works. You know,
Like
he's like
Todd Howard.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
He's
just.
like streamlined the process. It's insane.
But it
Like,
seems like JYP and now NCT as well are both targeting specific markets with these
yeah,
projects, right? Whereas Hybe's model is just consume everything around us, and if we like it, buy it.
yeah. Well, you know
And then
that those
YG is just kind
companies.
of plotting in their dungeon, and then will suddenly emerge with some highly polished act out
They
of
have a
nowhere. Yeah,
precedence in their data that they have where they're like, okay, this is what works. Do it. Like they're just pumping fully into what works, you know? Like
yeah.
so when I
And
think sorry, go ahead.
well, just all of that on top of what we've seen from these like top 10 labels, and then even labels under that are also having success alongside produce groups, survival groups, and so on,
Yeah.
also having huge success. It's just like the market saturation is only going to get even crazier.
That's why it's so hard because there is so many that have good amounts of popularity.
Yeah,
Not insane amounts of popularity obviously between all the groups, but it feels like more than ever there's like a place for groups to be really successful without having like the insane success of like Blackpink and BTS. It seems like there's like a medium amount of success where you can just kind of ride that and
yeah,
be doing very well versus just having like whereas before it seemed like you just had to be like one of the really big ones and then there was just the stuff that fell
there's the
like
rest.
yeah
Yeah,
then there's the rest whereas now that feels a lot day now there's like the ones coasting in the middle and then the rest and the
yeah.
ones above them like
It's like how we expanded from the big three to the big four, right? And it's
yeah
like it was like the big three and then the other top five, and now it's like the big four and the other top 10. You know, it's like because you can't count out like the size and power of like RBW now that they have WM underneath them. So
yeah
they have Mamamoo and Oh My Girl and On and Off and B1A4 and One Us and so it's all this. There's a lot of power in that one other label, which is not considered a big label in the same way. Um, I think I definitely presume that the size of the overall K-pop fandom internationally is going to keep growing, but I hope that it won't kind of plateau or kind of slow down when BTS kind of fade out of whatever their enlistment plans are, because I feel like
it's
BTS
a real
succeeded.
possibility you know
BTS
I mean
succeeded in becoming the household name of K-pop overseas, right? Like you can talk to most people who have no interest in K-pop at all. You mention the word K-pop and they go, "Oh yeah, I know BTS. I know that BTS song, right?" And that extends beyond. That might have been true for Blackpink, or more true for Blackpink a year or so ago, but without releasing, the interest in them faded, right? And I'm sure when they come back, they will go straight back to America and they'll have be back on all the shows and everything the same way. But I don't see them coming. They won't become the household name without the consistency that BTS had of just
no
doing so much
and
stuff.
BTS is sitting at this height that is insane right now of popularity and that there's like in America, it's gonna be confusing, I think, to a lot of people. Like, oh, there's just like random military enlists,
Mm,
for this gap of 18 months of
yeah.
of silence,
So
where
suddenly we're not going to hear much from them, and then
yeah,
suddenly we're going to see Stray Kids touring in the US, and we're going to have NCT promoting in the US, and it's like while both of them have done stuff in America before, it's not like they're complete unknowns, but the levels are just so different.
no, I
Um,
mean, I have family members who know nothing of K-pop, and then they know who BTS is.
yeah,
You know what I mean? That's the level of fame that they are at. You can know nothing of the genre and know about BTS.
yeah,
So that's like how you always can see who is at the most insane heights of their respective music genre and stuff. Is like, I mean, there's plenty of people who don't listen to metal, but they definitely know Metallica. Like, you know what
right,
I mean? It's like
right.
there's just those groups that sit in that area like that, where
We
they're
got the
known by
Metallica
everyone.
shouted.
Oh, I
we,
always find a
we
way.
got it there. Yeah,
IU,
yeah.
Metallica, Nature, we will always find a way to bring it up in an episode.
I guess that's probably one other thing to think about is there anyone that could suddenly have like a massive blow up out of nowhere? I mean, I guess these things can't really be predicted, right? Like, could it be possible to predict a chart reversal, like a Brave Girl situation for some other group somewhere?
Hello, Venus, please let it happen. They get back together. They release a massive hit.
I guess that was just that's just going to be wishful speculation. There's no way of predicting it, right?
I
But
would say, if there's no way to predict it, but I would say a new YG girl group. If I was to predict the potential of that happening, I would say it would be a new YG girl group.
that's just a
They,
blow up, though.
the like Blackpink is so famous. Like, I would say they are like the girl group version of BTS internationally and everything.
Yeah,
And I would say a new group getting even a little bit of their fame falling to them could just hit insane heights
yeah.
instantaneously.
But if a Dream Note or a Nature song happens to blow up massively and they become megastars, then that's all right with me.
I mean, that's what we want to happen. This is what we want to happen in 2022.
Yes.
Dude, I just want another insanely high quality release like Girls from Nature. Like, I would be very happy with that.
Hopefully soon.
So I guess I locked in girl group 2022 predictions. Do you want to go ahead and pick who you think for girl group, and then we'll do boy group prediction?
Um. So I think Ive are going to be. Well, Ive will definitely be the most kind of like, whoa, where did this come from, sort of thing. But I think the High B girl group is going to be the biggest in terms of numbers,
Domestically
if that makes sense.
or internationally? Both.
I've domestically and High B's group internationally.
Okay. That's a I could see that happening for sure. And
Yeah,
then the YG JYP girl groups are like kind of outliers that have potential to punch a
go
hole
either
through
way.
in the wall, like.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stay locked in with Stacy and Espa. I don't know why. I feel like Stacy Espa have a bunch of potential. I feel like Stacy domestically have massive potential of growth, and then Espa internationally, I could see doing massive things in 2022 if they really, really nail the concept they have with another release. Mixing the Kwangya, the virtual stuff's just getting crazier and crazier. You know what I mean? So if they
mm-hmm.
really mix that properly, they could really change things if they do it right.
Yeah, for
As
sure.
far as boy group pick for 2022, this is much harder for me. I feel like I had much less knowledge going off fourth gen boy groups. I mean, I know Stray Kids obviously and NCT and everything. I would say NCT internationally, I think, is going to be the most famous boy group 2022 of their fourth gen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so they have to be, yeah. And then domestically,
Well,
what is NCT's fame? Like, I don't really know.
I mean, NCT are technically third gen, but like each unit that debuts
Yeah,
now would be
it's
fourth gen.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
guess when I'm
it's
saying NCT, I need to pick like a specific unit. I think is going to have
yeah,
a huge year. Is it NCT 127 who did like favorite and
yeah,
okay, so yeah, NCT 127 I think could have massive 2022,
yeah.
and
I
then
think I think 127 internationally and Dream domestically was almost how it seems to have gone, but it's kind of hard. It's hard to judge.
that's the genius thing of their platform like that is they can release so many different styles with the different units and be hitting so many different markets
Yeah,
at the same time.
and not have to worry about investment in the same way as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I already mentioned Treasure. I think Treasure are going to be really big. I think that will be predominantly international, but it could be domestic too. It's honestly really hard to think of a boy group catching on in Korea in the same way as we've seen other groups in the past. So I think it might just be one that comes completely out of left field. I think it might be one that hasn't debuted yet, and might come out and hit something that the Korean public really wants to see that hasn't really been delivered yet. So
Yeah.
we have a couple coming up soon, so we'll have to see how they do.
Yeah, we'll have to do like a middle of the year look back at these predictions and be like, okay, we were off or something, you know, like
Yeah,
if it's way different how things kind of happen through the year.
yeah. I think what would be maybe a kind of dark horse for me might be CIX or Six, as you might call them. They might be my dark horse to have a really good year.
TXT, I was surprised to hear what isn't like insanely popular domestically because like I thought they had really good releases.
Yeah, I mean they're still very successful, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's when you compare it. Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. So you have Treasure, I have NCT 127, and then Stacy, Espa, and then you picked Hive's girl group, right?
And Ive.
And Ive. Okay, yeah, Hive and Ive. So we have solid picks. Like they're safe picks, kind of, because I don't feel like any of those groups are gonna just like fall off.
No.
You know, like they're just complete flops after that. You know, like I don't foresee that being a possible like reality at all. I guess yeah. The biggest outlier for me is a YG girl group could punch a hole through that whole idea. Just like the potential there is insane. I didn't know YG was having a new girl group, so
it might not even end up happening this year.
It might not even end up, but when that does
knows?
happen, that's just something that you know is gonna like freeze time at the
And if they
moment it
do-
happens. You know,
And I bet it'll be like they're going to be so quiet for most like so much of the year, and then in like June there'll be a Blackpink comeback.
There will
and
be.
then in like August there'll be Jisoo's solo, and then
You
in
know how
November
bad-
they'll debut the girl group, and it'll just be like, like
yeah. You know how mad Blinks are gonna be if like the new girl group is just constantly pumping out content.
oh yeah,
And Blackpink just has like one release in the year.
yeah.
I could see it happening, but yeah. So those are our picks. Anyone can feel free in the comments to drop their picks. I'm very interested in who people think is gonna explode in 2022, who's just gonna skyrocket in popularity. My hope is ITZY, but I'm being realistic, and though ITZY will probably stay around like the same kind of level of fame throughout the year, unless they have just like something that's such a banger of a song that it just like stops everyone in their tracks, you know.
They could do it.
They could, because the thing is, you never know what JYP's gonna kind of do business wise and stuff. So he could just really pump behind ITZY like a big hoorah, like kind of. You don't know. Well, that has been it for episode 11 of K-Pop Podcast. I'm Honan.
I'm Oliver.